Something happened to AI agents this year, and almost nobody outside the labs noticed it. The models that actually do work for you, they got a lot better. Not the chatbots you talk to, the ones that run terminals and fix code on their own. A model went from barely passing a benchmark to crushing it. In about 4 months, same architecture, same size, totally different behavior. Which means the trick was not more parameters. The trick was how you train the agent part. And that is the part most people skip. Because parameters are the headline. But post-training is where the actual work happens. This is DeepSeek-V4-Pro-0813, the general availability release that landed on August 13, 2026. It is the official version of what we saw as a preview back in April, and it is a much bigger upgrade than the version number suggests. DeepSeek shipped this architecture twice before. The Pro preview came out in April. That one had the 1.6 trillion parameter MoE design. It had the million token context window. It even shipped with MIT licensed weights. But the agent behavior was undertrained, so it scored terribly on real agentic benchmarks. It could reason, but it could not really act, which is a different skill. Then in July, they put out Flash. Flash was smaller and cheaper, but Flash was actually the better agent for a lot of tasks. Now August brings us Pro 0813, same base model as the April preview, but the post-training is on a completely different level. That is the whole story here, and this pattern is becoming normal in open weight land. The base model drops first. Then the usable agent version shows up months later. Not a new brain, a much better driver for the same brain. And there is one more thing worth flagging up front. The pricing changed 3 days after launch, so the model got better and also got more expensive. We will get to that, but remember it. Under the hood, it is a text-only mixture of experts model. 1.6 trillion parameters total, but only 49 billion are active for any single token. That is what makes it fast enough to actually use. The context window is 1 million tokens. Output can go up to 384,000 tokens. It uses DeepSeek's V4 family tricks, hybrid compressed attention, MHC residual connections, DeepSeek MoE routing, and something called MoE for optimization. You do not need to memorize those names. Just know the architecture is already proven. It shipped twice before this. It is not multimodal. No vision. Text and code only. The August release adds a speculative decoding module called DeepSeek-V4-Pro. That is about 50 extra billion parameters. The draft and the target come from the same checkpoint, which keeps quality high while decode gets faster. There are 3 reasoning effort levels: low, high, and max. You pick how hard it thinks before it acts. Low is cheap and fast. Max burns tokens but solves harder problems. They also released a public repo called DeepSeek Harness. That is the evaluation and agent harness they use internally, so you can actually reproduce their benchmark runs. This is rare for a frontier lab, and it is a genuinely good sign. Here is where it gets a little wild. On DeepSeek-V4-Pro, the April preview scored 12.8, the July flash scored 54.4, and Pro 0813 scored 62.7. That is a jump of almost 50 points over the preview, on a benchmark that actually simulates software engineering work. Not trivia, real repo tasks. On Terminal Bench 2.1, the preview was 72, Flash was 82, and Pro 0813 hits 87.9. On DS Bench Hard, the preview was 31, Pro 0813 is 67. That is a 36-point gain in 4 months. You almost never see jumps that big on held-out benchmarks. On CyberGym, the preview was 52, Pro 0813 is 83. And on NL2 repo, it goes from 38 to 61. So versus the April preview, this is a massive repair job. But versus July flash, the gap is much smaller, often just 5 to 8 points. Which raises a real question. Is Pro worth the price premium over Flash? For most tasks, the answer is probably no. For hard failures, the answer is maybe yes. Independent testing tells a slightly different story. Artificial analysis gives it an intelligence index of 53. Second in its open weight class, so it is competitive, but it is not the open weight king. Independent terminal bench comes in around 78.6. Both Pro and Flash land there, which is lower than DeepSeek's own 87 number. And decoding runs at about 76 tokens per second. But there is about 26 seconds of deliberation before the first token. So it thinks hard, then it talks fast. That delay matters for interactive use. You do not want Pro in a tight loop with a human waiting. You want it on background jobs where latency is fine. Two things changed the day after launch. First, the weights are now a versioned MIT release. That matters for reproducibility and for trust. Second, the pricing got a hard reset on August 16th. Peak output went from under $1 to about $4 per million tokens. Even off-peak Pro output is over 100% more expensive than before. So Pro is no longer the default. Flash is the cheap lane. Pro is the escalation lane for the expensive failures. The open weights are real and MIT licensed, but they are about 900 gigabytes of safe tensors. You need a 4x GB300 setup to run the reference config. So open weights does not mean it runs on your laptop. It means a well-funded team can self-host. The honest take is this. The gains over the April preview are huge, but that preview was undertrained on agent behavior. It was not architecture limited. The gains over Flash are modest, so you should route by cost of failure, not by prestige. And one caveat worth naming. DSBench is DeepSeek authored, so those numbers need independent replication. NIST Kaisi also found the preview's parity weakened on a held-out suite, which is a good reason to watch for third-party results on this one too. DeepSeek-V4-Pro-0813 is not a new model. It is the same model finally trained to act like an agent. And on agentic benchmarks, it recovered almost everything the preview gave up. But the pricing reset means you should not send everything to Pro. Use Flash for the cheap stuff. Escalate to Pro when a failure costs you real money. And if you care about open weights, yes, they are open. Just bring 900 gigabytes and a serious GPU rack. That is the real story under the version bump.